Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and I was always told how to voice radio, so today I am showing you another new deck that is seeing a little bit of hype in Japan at the moment. It's Lycanroc and Golbat, and like I've told you on all my Japanese-centered videos lately, I have some cool contacts in Japan like the lovely Antoine Boulet, so I assure you the information is coming from them, and when they tell me that a deck is being a bit hyped in Japan, I am willing to believe them. Now, there is one thing I need to point out before we get going here, and it is very important. We are currently playing the Primal Clash on format, meaning any set from Primal Clash onwards is legal, and we have our expanded format, which is black and white on. Japan, however, is playing X and Y on, so they are playing slightly different format. Doesn't make a huge difference for our expanded format, but I'm going to be mostly talking about standard here, which means there are a couple of cards for expanded and for Japan that we don't have in the standard format. And there's a couple I'm thinking of primarily. As we're talking about Lycanroc, it's a fighting deck. We don't have Corinna. Corinna is amazing. It allows you to search for a fighting Pokemon and an item card, which means that you can get that Rockruff ready to play down the following turn. It means you can make sure you have that Lycanroc when you need it. It means that you can go ahead and search something like a Choice Band if you really need to have it this turn. It means you can grab that Ultra Ball to grab a Shaman to go and draw some more cards to draw into what you need, etc. So you do have to remember, ladies and gentlemen, that we don't have them, and that could be a slight issue, but it's not the end of the world. The other one, of course, is Fighting Stadium. I'm going to run through the maths in a minute. Fighting Stadium just allows you to do 20 damage more to EXs, although remember, because it's an older card, it only affects EXs and not GXs. So, the main card we've got here, the real centre of this deck, is Lycanroc GX, the Midnight form. Now, I've done a few videos about Lycanroc cards recently. I've put links to all of them in the description. But this one has got the ability, like Luxray GL Level X, for those that were playing back then, or if you weren't, it's a Lysander. It allows you to grab one of your opponent's Pokemon and bring it into the active. And this is really, really crucial to the success of this deck, because it means that you can focus your supporters on things like Sycamore and N, into drawing cards, into getting set up, and then you don't need to waste your supporter on Lysander. You can use your Lycanroc, and then you just attack. Now, the attack of Lycanroc isn't great. It's not spectacular, it's not amazing, it's fine, but it's not the best attack ever. What it allows you to do for free energy is 110 damage. Now, the good news is that Lycanroc can use double colourless here, and the good news is that because he's a fighting Pokemon, he can use strong energy. Now, if you're hitting against something like a Tauros or a Darkrai, you're just getting a KO here. No issues with that whatsoever, it's just happening. But there's plenty of Pokemon for which 110 isn't particularly good. But the maths actually works out quite nicely. So, we've got the obvious Shaman here. 110 would be enough to KO if it wasn't for the resistance of Shaman, but all you need to do is just play a single strong energy, or a Professor Kukui, or a Choice Band, and you will get the KO on Shaman for 2 prizes. So you can be hunting down Shaman off your opponent's bench, picking up easy prizes. Maybe you can get a couple from that. Maybe you can KO 2 Shaman and get 4 prizes, but this ain't going to win you the game. What you really need here is to be taking out your generally X's, and we're talking 170, 180 HP. Think of something like a Tapu Lele, who is going to be seeing a huge amount of play. Or think of something like a Volcanion that's got 180 HP. And here's how it works, ladies and gentlemen. You do 110 standard. Add a Choice Band, it goes up to 140. Make that fighting energy a strong energy, and you've got 160. And now you're 10 or 20 damage short. You could use a Professor Kukui, but the problem with that is that you don't always have it, and it's your supporter for the turn. It doesn't draw that many cards. And that is where Golbat comes in. Golbat is the other big part of this deck. You drop Golbat, you do an extra 20 damage, and although Crobat has been rotated and cannot be played in Standard at the moment, Golbat was reprinted in Generations, so is totally still in the format. This is good. You're now hitting an easy, solid 180, which means you are picking on most basic GXs and pretty much all of your EXs, while hitting for a good type. Now, this won't KO everything. Something like a Lapras has 190 HP. Now, Kukui would work here. Or you could use a second strong energy, but it's still an awkward number. Similarly, once you get up to stage 1 GXs, think something like an Espeon, for instance, then you again need that second strong or that Kukui to get the KO. It's not ideal, but it's doable. It's absolutely doable. My big problem with this is the energy cost for the attack. You're going to be using a double colorless and a strong energy, which are both special energy, which makes you incredibly vulnerable to energy denial. Think Enhanced Hammer and think things like Promo Jirachi. Now, there are other options here depending on what you're doing, depending on what you're playing against. So I made a video the other day about the newer Lycanroc. Now, this is not something we can use in Guardians Rising. New Lycanroc GX, Guardians Rising, new Lycanroc is Burning Shadows, so we're not going to be able to play with it until August. But when that does come out, we can substitute that in. We're already playing Rockruff. We can play 4 Lycanroc in addition to 4 Lycanroc GX. And then for 1 energy, we do 60 to a basic. And then we can play Strong, Choice Band, Golbat, etc. The big problem here, of course, is that when we're fighting against basic GXs and EXs, this Lycanroc I've just shown you has pretty good maths. It's the stage 1 and stage 2 GXs with which we're struggling, and they won't be helped by the newer Lycanroc. Although, couple of nice bits of maths for you. Darkrai or a Tauros, strong energy and a choice band, you're doing 220, you get the KO even if they've got a Fighting Fury belt. And Shaman, strong energy, choice band, Golbat, even with the resistance you're getting a KO. And of course he's a non-GX that only gives up 1 prize, and because he attacks for 1 energy he's less susceptible to energy denial. A nice option, but my issue with this newer Lycanroc, which like I say isn't coming till Burning Shadows, you're already good when it comes to basics. It's the evolution Pokemon with which you will be struggling, and the Lycanroc from Burning Shadows is only going to be really useful when you're trying to take down those basic Pokemon, not the evolutions. Whoops. Now, this deck is not seeing quite the hype, quite the success of something like a Alolan Ninetales or especially Garbodor variants. And I think it is a weaker deck. Now, don't get me wrong. Against some decks, you play something like a deck with loads of Tapu Lele and Shaman, and you can just run through it with this. Something like Volcanion, if you can drop a couple of Hex Maniacs to turn off the abilities, then you'll be hitting 180 all day long, and it will be brilliant. It is a powerful deck, but it seems to have some really glaring weaknesses. First of all, I've mentioned this already, energy denial. You're using 2 energy attachments, both of them are special. Enhanced Hammer, Crushing Hammer, Team Flare Grunt, even Promo Jirachi. So much special energy hate around at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, and this you are really relying on it. That is far from ideal. Now you could always use something like Carbink Break to get more energy on 2 Lycanroc, but then he only blocks EXs, not GXs, assuming you've evolved from the Safeguard, which I imagine you would. So he's not as good as he used to be. I'm just not loving it. I mean, a deck like Lapras, for instance, is probably just going to run you out of all your special energy. There's only so many times you can use Special Charge to recover these energy before, you know what, it's probably all going wrong. You are weak to Decidueye, and Decidueye is seeing a huge amount of play at the moment. Now the Decidueye decks don't often really attack with Decidueye. They often attack with stuff like Lugia, Tauros, etc. But you could, and that would be an issue. And we run into the age-old problem here of you are revolving your deck around an attacker that gives up 2 prizes. Which means anything that can get easy one-hit KOs, especially given that you need 2 energy attachments, could be a huge, huge problem. I'll give you some examples. Garbodor. Use too many items, Garbodor's getting easy one-hit KOs. Volcanion. Now, you can use stuff like Hex Maniac to stop them doing this, but if they do get some steam ups off, they'll be getting big one-hit KOs. Rayquaza can go and get big one-hit KOs. Any deck that does is going to be an issue for you, and that is a big problem here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think this is a huge powerhouse deck. It was a deck that was mooted as one which was at least being talked about in Japan. I don't know how good people thought it was, but it was being talked about as a deck to look out for. I don't think it's as good as Garbodor. I don't think it's a powerhouse deck, but I absolutely believe that if you hit the right meta, and if you can be against a deck that's got a whole bunch of Pokemon in the range of about 180 HP that aren't having big one-hit KOs and not playing lots of energy denial, you will wreck. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is an awful lot of ifs, buts and maybes. Now you know the deal, there is a comment section, go nuts, be nice. Make sure you've liked this video, make sure you are subscribed to my channel, make sure you follow me on Twitter @TheWassy, and the most important thing as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching, my name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.